Hello. Sometimes I think it shouldn't be called the second-hand CD review. Maybe cheap CD review might be better. But I picked this up yesterday. You can see the price is $4.99, and this is a Flying Lotus album. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. That's it there. F-L-A something A-G-R-A, Flamagra, and then on here it doesn't help much either because the font is, can't even see that, can you? So a few weeks ago I bought a few similarly priced new CDs, Bonobo and Thundercat and Interpol. Well, it's the same shop, and this time I got Flying Lotus. And the reason why I wanted to take a gamble on this, now I've listened to bits and pieces of Flying Lotus over the years, and I've liked mostly what I've heard. But the reason I want to take a gamble on this is because I bought this about a month and a half ago, and I actually showed it on the channel. You might have seen it, maybe. This is the soundtrack for the Netflix animated series Yasuke, I think is the pronunciation or the name. Well, that's not helping, is it? I'm pretty sure it's Yasuke. Yasuke. I haven't watched it, so I don't know. I know they made a video game featuring him recently. But anyway, this soundtrack is made by Flying Lotus. And I showed this, and I talked about it a little bit already when I bought it, the day I bought it back in September. You can see it's got the Netflix somewhere. It's also got Warp, because a lot of Flying Lotus's stuff is put out on the Warp Records label. So I've been listening to this quite a lot over the last month, and I've got to say it's pretty darn great. I thought there was a good chance I would like it because I keep saying Thundercat. Flying Lotus, like his music is kind of based in jazz, electronic with, I guess, hip hop elements in it, but I guess jazz fusion electronic would be the main basis of his music. And so that kind of music is usually something I'm gonna like to an extent. And then I like soundtrack music, so I bought this one on the off chance. This was also, was this $5? I think this was $5. I can't actually remember. It was certainly no more than $5. I can't remember if it was 5 or 3. And this was also brand new. But I'm listening to it, and it's, how could I really describe it? It's like a mixture. Like all the songs are kind of like 1 to 2 minute snippets. They're not like long pieces. I think the longest song might be that last song there, track 26, Between Memories. That's about four minutes maybe. But most of them are just kind of like snippets you can imagine taken from different scenes in the show. But some of them you wish were longer. Like the ones that really stood out the first time I listened to it. So this always happens, doesn't it? With the focusing when the light isn't great. When the zoom was still not great. I guess that text is really small. But track 3, which is Your Lord, and track 4, Shoreline Sus, that's amazing. Like really atmospheric, very kind of, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other artists it reminds me of. It's got the soundtrack feeling to it, the kind of atmospheric it's trying to build, but it's something more than that as well. What other songs? There's a song that the next one, track 5, Hiding in the Shadows, and it's with Nikki Randa. I don't know who Nikki Randa or Randa is. She guests in a couple of the songs on this, and she does this really super high falsetto voice in that song, and it's just works perfectly with it. Because the series is set in Japan, it has kind of like this Eastern, kind of like some of the instruments and the scales he uses are kind of evoke a kind of East Asian aesthetic in some way. There's a track on here which it specifically says it. What's it? Taiko? Where is it? Track 18, Taiko Time. Taiko are those big giant drums they use in Japan. You know, taiko drummers, and that song they're using those drums. And other ones you can hear that kind of that plucked instrument they use in some East Asian countries, and in Japan I think it's called the koto, where it's like almost like a long stringed instrument made of wood. They pluck the strings, and the flute, was it saruhashi or sakuhashi or something like that? You hear those kinds of sounds that evoke that kind of, without being too generalized, but that kind of Asian atmosphere. But yeah, a really great album, really great soundtrack. The kind of thing that whenever I get something like this, when I take a punt and I really have no idea what it's going to sound like, even though I can kind of guess, and I enjoy it, it makes you really it makes you feel like you got like a victory in life. Like, this could have been absolute shit. I had no idea, but it was great. It's like a gamble. Although $5 is not a lot to gamble, is it? So in keeping and in staying with that, leading into yesterday's purchase, that because I so enjoying this album by keep going to say Thundercat by Flying Lotus, I thought I would give this one another gamble. Now, there's a chance I won't like this as much, and the reason is because this is very minimal vocals. There's a few. There's that girl, Nikki Randall, like I said, and there's a couple of other... Oh, that's right, Thundercat features on. Speaking of the man, he's on track 2, Black Gold. There might be... Oh, Denzel Curry's on it as well. I don't actually know who he is, but his name comes up a lot. But this one features a lot more vocals, and when there's added vocals, there's always a chance that's gonna... I don't know, take away from the song in some way, and maybe if it's especially kind of a style that I'm not really a fan of. But anyway, we see here Flying Lotus, Flamagra, whatever it says, a new 27-track album by Grammy-nominated artist Flying Lotus, featuring, in order of appearance, Anderson .Paak, don't know who he is, George Clinton, so he's from, what is it, Funkadelic or Parliament and Funkadelic? He's that kind of funk guy. Little Dragon, no idea. Tierra Whack, no idea. Denzel Curry, there's that name again, no idea. David Lynch, I assume that's the David Lynch of film director fame, Mulholland Drive and all that stuff. Shabazz Palaces, no idea. Thundercat, there we go. Toro y Moi. And Solange. Solange is Beyonce's sister, isn't she? So let's crack it open. This again is one of those kind of cardboard digipack type things. It seems that they are fairly popular with any kind of warp release nowadays. Apparently this is he wanted to write a concept album, not necessarily a concept album, but an album on the theme of fire. Get in there. There we go, that's good. So there is got a cover art. It's a bit Prince. Maybe it's the purple that's giving me a Prince vibe, I don't know. You can see different elements. So we've got the fire, we've got like a pigeon or a bird head stuck to something, a skeleton arm, 5 fingers with the tips on fire. Those are the eyes, I assume. There's the back. A brain. Going on a horse. So I don't know what's all. I haven't read anything really about the whole concept, other than that, like I said, he wanted to do something to do with fire. There he is. The CD's in there. Same kind of layout as the Yasuke soundtrack, except that didn't have a booklet, whereas this does. What have we got? Gold. More artwork, or the same artwork across 2 pages as opposed to on the other side. Is this, okay, this folds out, it's that style. There we've got the track listing. Now, this is another thing I do know. is that track 2, post-requisite, sampled the Boards of Canada song, Everything You Do Is Balloon. So that should be interesting because Boards of Canada. There was another sample on this that I read. It had a list of the samples, not on the CD itself, but on this article I quickly just skimmed. It was from, I can't remember, from some video game or something. I can't remember. Okay, the artwork goes right across here. So we start here, zoom out into this. The camera's probably not picking up very well, although I'd say, yeah, it's not anything mind-blowing, really. And on the other side, we've, like I said, the track listing and the liner notes. Credits: Stephen Ellison and Stephen Brunner. I assume one of those is Flying Lotus's real name? Maybe? Because there's that same name, especially, yeah, Stephen Ellison pops up again in every single track. So unless he's got some writing partner who writes everything for him called Stephen Ellison, I assume his birth name is Stephen Ellison. He mixed it. All right, so there's not much there. So yeah, I don't really have much to say about it because I haven't listened to it yet. But I've got high hopes for it. And also, yeah, it's good to find these, new stuff for $5. I think that's that really is amazingly cheap, because I certainly know that when I used to buy CDs when I was a young man, that you wouldn't be finding anything other than absolute junk. Even the junk stuff would be more than that. So you wouldn't be finding relatively new releases by current contemporary artists for this price. And so it's always nice to find these bargains. It's kind of like finding a diamond in the rough or needle in the haystack, whatever other cliche you want to use to describe it. But it's kind of like surprising. Like, why? Yeah, I wonder why are these so cheap? That they're just not selling, I assume, or there's some sort of distributor thing that they, like. I know overall they're not selling. They sell way more. The shop where I bought this, they sell way more records than they sell CDs. So maybe this is a way to clear some stock. Some other CDs that have been released recently that I've been wanting to get a hold of. Well, I think yesterday the new album by Devin Townsend, Power Nerd, was released. And I've listened to the things he's released, the stuff online, like the streaming services. He's, over the last few weeks, he's kind of drip fed a few singles. And I haven't really been blown away by anything. So I'm kind of umming and ahhing where I want to get there. Because if I do find that in a shop, that's going to be around $30 new. And if I get it shipped here, it's probably going to be a similar price, maybe a bit more. The other thing is the Opeth, the new Opeth album. I think it's like Last Will and Testament or something like that. That was scheduled to be released, like basically now, the end of October, but it's been pushed back to the end of November. And what I've heard of that, I've been quite impressed. Sounds quite interesting. And so again, I'm thinking, should I bother and just wait until I find it in a shop? Maybe I might be able to find it in a shop when it's released, or should I get it shipped? Maybe get a special edition. It all costs money though, so you can't get everything. And there was something else as well, another new release by another artist that I was thinking about. Same thing, whether I want to buy it new or get it shipped here from overseas. And part of the reason why I'm thinking about these things and I kind of spend a little bit more money and get these kinds of things is because it is becoming increasingly hard to find decent quality secondhand CDs. We talked about that in the last few videos. I might talk about it again in a future video, how it seems that the the market has slowly been turning over the last year, and the way that affects the ability to find things and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we'll leave it there for today. We don't need a super long video on this one. Flying Lotus. The lotus that is flying.